All right, let's talk about the secret sauce, the hidden operating system that makes every great story tick. It's called point of view. And trust me, it's way more than just deciding between I or he. POV is like this invisible architecture that completely controls what you know, what you're allowed to see, and, most importantly, what you feel. So let's pull back the curtain and see how this whole thing actually works.
You know that feeling when you're so deep in a story that it feels like it's literally reading your mind? Where you feel what the characters feel exactly when they feel it? Well, that's not magic. That is a deliberate choice, a carefully constructed illusion built by the author. And today, we're going to see exactly how they pull it off.
So if you remember first person and third person from school, that's a decent start, but it's really just scratching the surface. True point of view is the lens that shapes everything you experience in a story. And believe me, it gets way more complex and interesting than you might think.
So here's the main idea you gotta hold on to. POV isn't just one choice, it's a whole bunch of them. Think of the author like a film director. They're deciding exactly where to point the camera, what to zoom in on, what to leave out, and precisely how you're supposed to feel about everything you're seeing. It is the ultimate tool for controlling your entire experience of the story. Okay, so to really get a grip on POV, you have to split it into two simple but totally separate questions. First, who is speaking? And second, who is seeing? Now this sounds easy, but here's the kicker. The person telling the story isn't always the person whose eyes we're looking through. I promise you, once you get this distinction, you are going to see it absolutely everywhere.
So, let's dig into that first question, who speaks? This is all about the narrator, the voice, the entity that's actually telling us the story. And, as we're about to see, narrators come in a few very important flavors.
Okay, don't let the fancy words throw you off. The idea here is super simple. A homodeugetic narrator is a character inside the story world. They're the ones saying I or we, like Nick Carraway in The Great Gatsby. On the other hand, a heterodeugetic narrator is an observer who's completely outside the story, telling it using he, she, or they.
Call me Ishmael. I mean, it's one of the most famous opening lines in all of literature, and it's a perfect example of that inside, that homodiegetic narrator. Ishmael is right there in the thick of it, and from this very first sentence, we are completely locked into his version of what happened.
And here we have the polar opposite. That's not Elizabeth Bennet talking, and it's not Mr. Darcy. It's this anonymous, super witty, all-knowing voice from way outside the story, setting the stage for us. This narrator isn't a character you can point to. They're more like a presence guiding the whole thing.
So, we've got our narrator, but that brings up a much more exciting question, doesn't it? Just because someone is telling the story, does that mean they're telling the truth? And this, my friends, is where we get the absolutely brilliant concept of the unreliable narrator.
Lolita is the absolute masterclass in this. The narrator, Humbert Humbert, spins this beautiful, poetic tale to justify his monstrous actions. But the real genius is how the author, Nabokov, very carefully plants all these little clues that expose his narrator's lies. We, the readers, are forced to see past the gorgeous language to the ugly truth he's trying to hide.
Okay, so we've got a handle on who's speaking. Now we have to ask that second, equally crucial question, who sees? Think of this as the story's camera. Where is it pointed? What's it showing us? The technical term for this is focalization.
So, basically, you've got three main camera modes to choose from. First up is zero focalization. Think of this as God mode. The camera is all-seeing, all-knowing. It knows more than any single character ever could. Then you've got internal focalization. This is your classic over-the-shoulder cam, right? It's locked onto one person, and we're stuck in their head. We only see what they see. And finally, there's external focalization. This one's like a fly-on-the-wall security camera. It just shows us what's happening, actions, speech, but we get zero access to anyone's thoughts. It's pure observation.
And now for the really, really cool part. What happens when an author can blend the narrator's voice with a character's thoughts so seamlessly you can't even tell them apart? This technique is pretty much the pinnacle of POV mastery.
It's called free indirect thought, and yeah, it really is the ultimate mind meld in fiction. It lets a third-person narrator report a character's thoughts using the character's own unique voice and style, but without clunky tags like she thought or putting it all in quotes. It feels like you're just slipping directly into their consciousness. It's amazing.
So how does this magic trick actually work? Well, on a technical level, the narrator keeps speaking in the third person and past tense. But the words, the rhythm, the feelings, the questions, that's all pure character.
It creates this incredible dual voice, where the narrator and the character kind of speak at the exact same time, sometimes even in the same sentence.
Okay, check out this example. She had been foolish. That sounds like a narrator, right? An outside voice making a judgment. But then, right after, but what could she have done differently? See? That's not the narrator talking anymore. That is the character's internal voice. Their raw emotion, just breaking right through the narration. It's so intimate and incredibly efficient.
So we've got narrators, we've got cameras, we've even got these mind melds. But why does any of this actually matter? Well, because choosing a perspective isn't just some dry technical decision. It is an act of power.
Yeah, every single POV choice an author makes is operating on what you might call an ideological plane. By deciding whose voice gets heard and whose perspective we are forced to follow, the author is literally building the story's entire moral universe. They are making a powerful statement about whose story matters, and by extension, whose doesn't.
And think about it, right? When a narrator calls a character brave, they are straight up telling you how to feel. When one character is always the one doing things, while another character just has things done to them, that's shaping how you see power in that world. With every single sentence, the POV is quietly telling you whose side to be on, guiding your judgment without you even realizing it's happening. So the next time you get lost in a book or a story, just for a second, try to pull back and look for the seams. Notice the camera work and ask yourself, who is speaking here? Who gets to see? And whose version of the world is being sold to me as the truth? Because once you understand the story's operating system, you're not just a reader anymore. You can see the whole blueprint.